We got Gators Breakdown here. We know we're business.
Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I am your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. Jam-packed episode right here for you, featuring finally starting the preview of the Miami Hurricanes right here on this episode of Gators Breakdown. I'm going to sit down with Adam Lichtenstein of the Miami Hurricanes beat writer for the Sun Sentinel down in Miami. He shares his thoughts, insights, analysis on the Hurricanes, and pretty valuable perspective here as we learn a whole lot about the Miami Hurricanes on this opponent spotlight here. So plenty to get into right there. Kind of going to break it up this week. A lot of content. First game of the season, big game of the season, going against the in-state rival Hurricanes. So this will be that part of the episode where we talk to a guest who covers the opposing team. I'll give my preview and prediction on the next episode of Gators Breakdown. That should be out sometime on Thursday. So the preview and prediction going to be separate from this episode. But we're going to dive into how big of a game this is also for Miami head coach Mario Cristobal, Cam Ward's impact at quarterback, and on the other side of the ball, some returning standouts on defense, but also many new faces through the transfer portal. So lots to get into about this Miami Hurricanes team. A lot of returning, but a lot of newness at the same time. It's kind of the new world of college football, of course. Definitely at the quarterback spot for the Hurricanes. We'll also hear from Graham Mertz and Jason Marshall. They spoke to the media early this week on this big game as well, so plenty to get into. So hit that like button, like it, hit it as many times as you can. Nah, you only hit it once. But hey, don't forget, if you hadn't done it yet, just hit that like button. Also, subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Some of you think you might be subscribed, but if you're not, subscribe right here on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. We're going to be here all season right here on Gators Breakdown. So plenty to get into. You can get into even more at Gators Breakdown Plus. Link is in the description. You get extra episodes. You'll hear Billy Napier's SEC teleconference right there on Gators Breakdown Plus. Link is in the description. Access to that Discord chat. We're going to have a voice chat this week. We're going to discuss when the depth chart releases or has been released. We're going to discuss that. So if you want to listen to that, because it's probably too late for you by the time that episode records, but if you want to listen to what we had to discuss as Gators Breakdown Plus members, you can listen to it right there. That's going to be one of the extra episodes every week is that chat. So also get those ad-free episodes right here during football season. There's going to be a lot of ads in Gators Breakdown, but if you want ad-free episodes, well, you know what? You can get them right there. Link is in the description to join Gators Breakdown Plus. And here we are to preview the Miami side of things of this Florida-Miami matchup. Saturday in the Swamp. Adam Lichtenstein from the Sun Sentinel down in Miami joining us right here on Gators Breakdown. Adam, thank you so much for previewing this big matchup for us.
Yeah, no problem. I'm really excited to come up there on Saturday, visit my old stomping ground since I'm a UF alum, and, should be a really good game to open the year.
Yeah, so you, of course, cover Miami down there, and as you said, went to Florida, so this game probably holds some significance for you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just really excited to be back in Gainesville. I haven't been back in like 6 years or so. So excited to see it. Excited to be back in the Swamp. And just, I don't root for the Gators anymore because I cover the Hurricanes and I have to be professional.
Yeah.
But, like I said, just excited to be back. I haven't been back in a while. And very interested to see how Florida, if they've gotten better. I'm very interested to see if, how Miami's gotten better. Because last time we saw both these teams, they were coming off not super great seasons.
Yeah, not much has separated these programs the last couple of years. Both coaches coming in the same year, both going into their third year. So certainly a game that has got a lot of pressure on both coaches. And look, the Florida side knows how much pressure is on Billy Napier, but how much pressure is on Mario Cristobal for this game? His seat doesn't seem to be as hot for him from a national perspective as, Billy Napier's name is brought up a whole lot. But, there's a lot of the same reasons for both coaches of why this is such a pressure-packed matchup.
Yeah, he's definitely not on the hot seat like Billy Napier is. And I think even if they lose, he won't be because there's so much ahead of them, even if they lose on Saturday. Because if they lose, they could still basically run the table and make an ACC title game, get into the playoffs. So I know Florida's schedule is much more difficult than Miami, so if Florida loses this game, they might be in trouble. But yeah, I mean, I think the pressure is there from the fan base. They don't want to lose to Florida. Marcus Ball hasn't beaten Florida State yet. That'd be another Florida rival they would lose to. So I don't. I think the fans will be very upset if Miami loses on Saturday. But I don't think he'll be on the hot seat or anything like that.
Yeah, what is kind of the reputation of Mario Cristobal in the fan base? I know, much like Billy Napier, you have a lot of questionable play calls, questionable decisions on game day. I think that's what Florida fans are looking for from Billy Napier on Saturday. And I think I have a Miami buddy that I talk to all the time, and he still questions Mario Cristobal as a game day head coach. I think that plays a lot into this too. Like, fan bases to get some confidence on their head coach of making the good decisions in a big game.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty similar because, I mean, people talk about Mario like, okay, he's a fantastic recruiter. Everyone knows that. He's, had 2 top 10 classes the last 2 years. Been great getting guys out of the portal. Got Cam Ward, Damian Martinez, Tyler Barron from Tennessee. Like, he's obviously very good at building a roster, and he did that at Oregon too. The question is, how well does he coach on game day? Thinking back to the Georgia Tech loss last year where just needed to take a knee and they would have won that game. They'd have been 8-4, and 8-4 feels a lot better than 7-5. So that's the big question. I know Billy Napier's kind of got the same questions where, whether it's sending out guys with the same jersey numbers or not having the right number of people on the field on like field goal blocks and stuff like that. Like I think both coaches need to show that they are capable and competent on game day. Because that's what separates. I mean, most coaches aren't perfect in every aspect of the game, but the elite coaches are. If you want to be an elite coach, you have to be capable at every aspect of things, and neither of them have really shown that yet.
Yeah, big game for both those coaches on the sideline on Saturday. But let's go to the field right quick. Early returns on Cam Ward seem to be what Miami fans want to hear. How do you think that fit is going there, and how much of the offense do you see changing from what we saw with Tyler Van Dyke at quarterback? Ward would be no stranger to throw up 40 times a game at Washington State, but probably won't be asked to do that as much in this Miami offense.
I think the big change is that the offense is going to be significantly better. That's the biggest change. I just think Cam Ward's a better quarterback than Tyler Van Dyke, and Cam Ward's played. I mean, Shannon Dawson, he's kind of like loath to lean into the air raid definition. And so is Mario Cristobal, because Mario Cristobal's always been like kind of a run heavy coach. So I think they're kind of balanced. I think they'll do whatever they need to do to win. If running the ball is working, they'll run the ball a bunch and they'll let Cam Ward throw it 25 times. If passing is working, he'll throw the ball 45 times. I think they're just going to go with whichever is working. But in camp, in spring and in fall, Cam Ward's looked really good. I mean, I don't pretend to be a scout, but he's looked good to me. Ball comes out of his hand very easily. I've said it before, but like, seems like he just flicks his wrist and the ball's 45 yards downfield or something. Like he's got the arm talent. He's a really skilled quarterback. He's built chemistry with the rest of the offense. One of the things that stood out to me was he hosted a Super Bowl party like right after he got on campus. He would have been on campus less than a month. Hosted a Super Bowl party for the offense. And took the offensive lineman out to dinner. I'm sure that bill ran him in the 5 figures. So, got to be thankful for NIL there. But yeah, he seems like he's a really good fit for this offense. And I mean, we don't get to see a lot of practice. I think Florida media gets to see a lot more, but it just everything. It seems like a great fit. Like from what we've seen, what people have said, it just seems like it should work.
Certainly has some good weapons at wide receiver. The top 3, probably Restrepo, Jacoby George, Sam Brown, seem like a good matchup for what we think is an improved Florida secondary. But certainly, I think we'll get our answer Saturday because those top 3 guys at receiver, I certainly think will be a test. Is it pretty clear those are the top 3 receivers, and how deep does that receiver room go?
Yeah, those are probably the top 3 guys, but we'll definitely see rotation. I mean, you start with Xavier Restrepo, a guy who I've covered since he was in high school. He's like, I don't want to compare him to Braxton Berrios just because he plays slot for Miami, but like he's a great route runner. He's got great hands. He's a leader on the team. he was a guy who wasn't like highly recruited. I think he was a 3-star prospect. So to see him grow into, one of the top receivers in the conference is really been something to watch. And then Jacoby George, I think he was 4th in the ACC in receiving yards last year. Really solid receiver on the outside. And then Sam Brown, they add him. He has like that ability to go over the top, make over the shoulder catches, kind of, extend the field, extend the ball down, or, take the offense downfield. And then behind them, like, they've got talent. Like, I remember a couple of years ago, we were talking like, does Miami have any capable receivers? Now it's like they've got too many. Although you can never have too many, because behind those three, you got Isaiah Horton, who was probably the favorite to kind of fill in that third outside spot, or the outside spot after Colby Young transferred to Georgia. So you guys will see him next or later this year.
Yeah.
But he was kind of the favorite to fill in that spot until Sam Brown transferred in. He had a very, very good spring, and he's had a good fall. So I think he'll rotate it in a good bit. Behind Restrepo in the slot, you got Ray Joseph, who is a very talented receiver, former 4-star prospect. He had a pretty solid freshman year when he got on the field. He wasn't on the field very much. So when he did, he looked good. And they've got some other, some really talented freshmen guys like JoJo Trader, who was a 4-star at Chaminade Madonna down here. And he was excellent in his own right, but he kind of got overshadowed because he was teamed up with the number 1 player in the country, Jeremiah Smith, at the other side of the field. But JoJo Trader's a great receiver in his own right. He was here for spring, so he's got, kind of integrated into the offense. And same thing for Nye Carr, who was another 4-star prospect. So very deep, very talented wide receiver room. They have plenty of options there.
Yeah, I mean, if Florida fans follow recruiting, a lot of those names are going to feel very familiar. So for some Florida-Miami battles the last couple of years, man, I tell you what, you go to the backfield, some 2 big-bodied backs back there with Damian Martinez, Mark Fletcher. And it could be reasons why Ward won't have to throw the ball 40 times a game. Sounds like Fletcher's healthy, ready to go. I know you probably have more on that from press conferences this week. And, Martinez just brings a ton of production from Oregon State. And it's kind of funny. You look at it. In this new world of college football, this Miami team has a lot of Pac-12 flavor. You got Mario Cristobal from Oregon a few years ago, Ward Martinez playing in that conference the last couple of years. But, yeah, certainly in that backfield, those running backs certainly can help Cam Ward.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Martinez, if it wasn't for Cam Ward, we'd be talking about Damian Martinez a lot more. All Pac-12, 1,000-yard rusher, a big-bodied back, really talented guy. They're very happy to have him. And then Mark Fletcher, former future Florida Gator. I have another kid who I've covered, as a local down here in South Florida, who I covered since he was, I think, a freshman or a sophomore in high school. He's a linebacker playing running back. I don't envy linebackers who have to try to tackle him. He's huge. He moves quickly. And yeah, he's healthy. He's been practicing. So I think, I don't know how often they're going to run Martinez, whether they run him 15 to 20 times a game or if they're going to run him 20 plus times a game. But I think they have enough talent in the running back room where they can, move guys in and out, where they can keep miles off guys' legs, keep them fresh for a whole season, because you have Martinez, you have Fletcher, and then behind them you have A.J. Allen, who was capable when he played last year, a freshman in Jordan Lyle, who's a very talented guy, another South Florida player, and then a couple other running backs who have their own skill sets, who might get on the field for a couple snaps. So they're going to be rotating guys, I think, in and out. If Martinez is having a particularly good game, I'm sure they'll ride the hot hand, but I think they're going to try to keep guys fresh and keep them healthy throughout the year by limiting their snaps a little bit, and then just kind of going with the hot hand.
I mean, all these guys we just talked about, but we know Mario Cristobal loves that offensive line. It is his background. That's what he's recruited very well. Starts all up front for him. And it's kind of a 3-year rebuilding process for that offensive line. Appears to be the strongest it has been in years for the Hurricanes. Several NFL potential prospects here. Excellent protection there for Cam Moore, creating opportunities for those running backs we just discussed. You certainly, if you're Mario Cristobal, you probably like where you're at in that group right now.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, their offensive line really good last year. All 5 starters started every game, which is not something you can say for every offensive line. I think they allowed the second fewest sacks in the ACC last year. I think 15 or 16. And Cam Ward's more elusive than Tyler Van Dyke, so I think they could maybe even be better than that this year. You have, Jalen Rivers on the left side. Starts with him. He's a veteran. I think he's a 5th-year senior. Could have gone to the NFL last year, chose to come back. and just a really, a leader, everything you want from a left tackle, very, very skilled player. At center, you have Zach Carpenter, who is a transfer from Indiana. He's one of the new starters on the line, one of two. They like him a lot. He's not quite as loud and boisterous as Matt Lee was last year. Matt Lee famously, caught on camera at the end of the Georgia Tech game, cursing about what was going on. But Matt Lee was a great interview, and a very great player for Miami last year. But they think they have a more than adequate replacement for him. And then on the right side, you've got Inez Cooper, who I think might be the gem from Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal's coaching since they got to Miami, because they got Inez Cooper. Really, I mean, he was not a heralded guy. 3-star prospect, like outside the top 1,000 in the rankings. Signed him in February. Like, he wasn't really on anyone's radar. He gets thrown into the starting lineup as a freshman, does well, and now he's going into his second. That was in 2022. Now he's going into his second full year as a starter. He's a potential future NFL guy who nobody knew about when he was in high school. They've done an excellent job coaching him, and he's a really solid presence on that right side of the line. And then, of course, on at right tackle, another former future Florida Gator, Francis Mauigoa. Everyone knows about him. 5-star guy, freakish athlete. Like, I think it may have been last year, but he's like Mario Cristobal said he's like 330, 340 pounds, and he runs 19, 20 miles an hour, which just is insane. Imagine it's like getting hit by a truck. So they intend to utilize his ability. Like, he's a great a great run blocker. They're going to run behind him a lot. And he's going to develop into a better pass blocker. Had some freshman mistakes last year, but I think he'll be, over that by now. The one semi-question is left guard. Javion Cohen, who just made a NFL roster yesterday, I think. He graduated. He went to the NFL. So they were looking for a replacement for him. Looks like it's probably going to be Matt McCoy, who we haven't seen a ton of. I think he played about 100 snaps last year, kind of in a reserve role, maybe a little bit less than that. But we haven't seen a ton of him on the field. But he's been, getting coached by Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal for 2 years. So I think more likely than not, he should be a solid left guard.
Adam, before we move to the other side of the ball, what do you think the biggest question mark for this Miami Hurricane offense is?
I really don't think there is one. Like, that's the thing. Like, the offense, there really does not seem to be any holes. I think the only question, particularly for this game, is it's the first game, new quarterback. It's going to be very loud in the swamp. How, a lot of teams make kind of, make errors in week one. How does that happen at all for the Hurricanes? That's the biggest question, and I really think it's only a week one thing.
Yeah.
Overall, looking ahead to the whole season, I don't really have any questions about this offense. It should be one of the best in the nation. They should be very good.
Yeah, and I think going to your week one part of it too, this new in-helmet communication. I'd love to be the home team week one. You work out the kinks for that. Being the away team, especially in a stadium like the Swamp, if something goes wrong, look, I know the first drive, those plays are scripted. They probably can run those in their sleep. But as the game progresses, if it's a close game throughout and that Florida crowd stays in it, I do wonder about the in-helmet communication and trying to figure out the kinks of that as well. So
yeah, I did write about that yesterday actually. Oh, yeah. And they've talked like they're using it. Miami's using the in-helmet communication, but they're gonna still use signals. I think basically have backup plans in case it cuts out, in case they can't hear. Which wouldn't be shocking if they can't hear, because it's gonna be very loud, I expect. So they've got backup plans for that.
Yep. Let's go to the other side of the ball. There, star on defense up front, Ruben Bain, and the one player Florida fans have known to be on the lookout for, given the Gators' offensive line struggles last year. So it'll be a good test to see how they've improved. Great pass rusher there. I mean, freshman last year burst on the scene. You just got to think that year two for him, there's another jump, and game one is going to be a big test.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ruben Bain, excellent freshman year, and named Defensive Rookie of the Year in the conference. And from what we've seen, I mean, he looks good in practice, like kind of like everyone else. But he's posted on social media like his body transformation from year one to year two. He's added more muscle, lost body fat. He seems faster and stronger, which I think is a bad sign for opposing offensive linemen. He's a great player. You know, you knew he was going to be an early contributor, but I don't know if anyone really knew he was going to be as good as he was last year. And I definitely think we're going to see a jump from him this year. And what's crazy is that the reason why he started getting a lot more playing time early in the year is because Akeem Mesidor got hurt, like had a foot injury early in the year against A&M, which allowed Ruben Bain to play more on the edge. Akeem Mesidor is healthy now, and I think they were, Mesidor, older player, kind of mentored Ruben Bain last year when he was injured. So now they're both going to be on the field at the same time this year, and I think they're really looking forward to that.
Yeah, so very important, for, as you just mentioned, two players they can count on, because it's overhauled up front besides those two guys. A ton of transfers you've already mentioned a bit. Tyler Barron, Simeon Barrow, TJ Clark also transferring in. Are those, with those new faces, with those transfers, are those going to be the main contributors up front, or are there battles with guys who were on the roster already anyway?
Yeah, I think, a lot of the transfers are going to get a lot of playing time. I think Barrow's going to be one of the main guys up front. CJ Clark will be one of the main guys up front. Barron and Marshall transfer, Elijah Alston, are going to be, I think, they're going to have big roles on the edge, along with Bain and Mesidor. So yeah, it's like a whole new defensive line. I think they had 12 transfers out, and either transfers or went to the NFL, and they had 12 either freshmen or transfers in. So it's basically totally overhauled. Outside of Bain, Mesidor, and a couple other guys, Ahmad Moten is a returning player who I think will get some playing time at defensive tackle. But other than that, it's going to be a lot of transfers, a lot of new faces.
Let's go to that second level. Francisco Mauangoa decided to return. Gives a great second level player for this Canes defense. What makes him so special?
One, he's obviously supremely talented. Two, he's a leader. That gets talked about a lot and thrown around a lot. He really is one of those guys who can be a vocal leader, shows it on the field. He's going to be one of the guys with the in-helmet communication, so like relay plays. Like he knows the defense, he fit well. And I think he's kind of underrated. I think had it not been for Peyton Wilson having a dominant year at NC State, Francis Mauigoa would have had a little bit more pub last year. Had 18 tackles for loss, tied with Ruben Bain for 7.5 sacks, for the lead on the team. He's a fantastic player, and kind of like Jalen Rivers, the fact that they got him back, he's coming back for another year. When he didn't have to, he probably could have gone to the NFL and gotten drafted. It really helps the team, keeps kind of the core of the team together where they can, and it's a big thing for them in the middle of the field, because he's an intimidating presence in the center of the field there.
Absolutely. So we talked about all the new faces up front, and there's some new faces on the back end as well. And the biggest question probably overall is the secondary for this Miami defense. A lot of portal movement there too in the secondary. Jaden Harris returns at safety, but you pair him with transfers, Isaiah Taylor from Arizona, Michelle Powell from Washington. How's that position shaping up? Because are the corners as set as maybe many think with Damari Brown and Daryl Porter?
Yes and no. The secondary, like you said, is definitely the biggest question. It's been the biggest question in the spring, biggest question in the fall. But the Hurricanes, the coaching staff seems very happy with what they have. You have Daryl Porter, who another underrated player, I think, a very solid cornerback. Maybe not going to be the flashy 5 or 6 interception guy, but he's able to keep his receiver in check. Damari Brown seems likely to start at nickelback. They're going to have him line up in the slot. Very talented guy, 4-star prospect out of American Heritage down here. We saw him a bit last year. I think he made 4 starts, and he looked okay. Not outstanding. He's a freshman, so you can't, expect him to be outstanding. But he got kind of a taste of things last year. They're going to expect more of him this year. On the other outside role, I think you're going to see Deani Hill, who transferred in from Marshall, played for Lance Guidry, played for cornerbacks coach Chevis Jackson at Marshall. So they're familiar with him. I think you'll probably see him line up outside opposite Daryl Porter. And then safety, they lost both safeties in the NFL, Cam Kitchens and James Williams. So that was a big question mark. Looks like Mish Powell's going to get one of those spots, and Jaden Harris the other. Powell, he might be, from the first time we spoke to him in the spring, that dude is just incredibly smart. Coming from Washington, where he was a 14, 15 game starter as they made their national runner-up run last year. talented guy, incredibly smart. Like, and the safeties, like Lance Guidry said yesterday, they're a safety run defense. So to have somebody like him, kind of leading things from the back like that, it's very important, kind of to fill in for Cam Kitchens. And then Jaden Harris, I mean, we only saw him a little bit last year. He got 2 starts when Cam Kitchens was hurt last year, and he was fine. Like, nothing outstanding, nothing, noticeably bad or anything like that. But this will be his first time being a full-time starter. He got incredible speed. He's very fast. He's kind of a ball hawking safety. But we'll see, how he builds his confidence, how he handles, getting 60, 70 snaps a game and stuff like that. So we haven't really seen much of him so far.
A very interesting angle there. You mentioned Mish Powell from Washington. Asa Turner is another safety from Washington. He's going to be playing for Florida, start for Florida in that secondary. So 2 Washington safeties in this game. Just the crazy world of college football we live in right now. So, Adam, even crazier. I'm going to go back to your tweet before we sign off here. Gators and Hurricanes fans arguing about mentions days before the actual game. College football really is back. My friend, it really is. And can't wait for this game on Saturday. It's sure to be a knockdown drag out between these 2 rivals. And you're right, man. The fan bases are just really going at it right now.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite things, like, about college football. Like I said, I grew up down here in South Florida, went to college at UF. My brother went to FSU. My sister went to UCF.
Oh, wow.
So we're all over the place. But it's just, with FSU losing to Georgia Tech, like, whoever wins on Saturday,
yes,
they're going to be kings of the state, for now. It's so funny to me. And I remember, I think it was in an Athletic article about another podcast talking about, like, the big 3 in Florida, how it's always 2 ganging up on 1. So, like, whoever wins this week is going to be, like, the king of the state, going to be absolutely insufferable on social media. And they deserve it. Like, yeah. Have your fun. I'm not judging people for that. Just, like, it's just fun. That's what makes college football, what makes college football so great, and what makes it especially great in Florida, because you got 3-4 big programs if you want to include UCF, which I know a lot of Florida fans don't always want to include UCF. But you have these big programs, and they're all going at each other on social media. There's recruiting battles. There's, they play each other on the field. So it's so much fun. I love it. I'm so excited for football to be back.
Yeah, you're right. Like I said, that FSU game, losing to Georgia Tech, certainly, I think, puts this game was already going to be up there in pressure, but I think it really does, ramp up just even more, because, as you said, these, especially for these 2 programs, because they haven't had the success FSU has had in the recent years. So they're looking for just something to hang on to, a reason to believe in their coach, a reason to believe in their team. And then you get this win, and you're like, yeah, okay. Yeah, FSU's already got a loss. We beat the other rival there. So we are the team to beat in the state for now. So, Florida's still got UCF on the schedule, and FSU, Miami does as well for FSU. So it will work itself out. But
yeah, it's going to be interesting, because, you guys have UCF and FSU. Miami plays FSU and USF. So it's going to be, there's a lot of inner Florida, Florida on Florida crime this year.
For sure. Exciting season for all of us. So, Adam, hey, thank you so much for joining us right here there at the Sun Sentinel. Adam Lichtenstein joining us right here on Gators Breakdown, previewing these Miami Hurricanes. Good stuff there from Adam, giving us a position-by-position preview of those Miami Hurricanes. I'll do it as well on the next episode of Gators Breakdown. You get my preview of the Hurricanes as well as the prediction for the game that kicks off Saturday at 3:30. As I mentioned earlier this episode, we're also going to hear from Graham Mertz and Jason Marshall. So let's start with the quarterback and get his thoughts on this big game and the prep coming into it.
Just how excited are you to begin this season of college football for yourself?
Yeah, I can't wait. 6th one. Anytime you get up to that first game, all that pregame anticipation, you put in all the work for that. So definitely excited.
What does it mean having kind of the synergy of, like, year 2 with, Coach Napier's play caller, and now with Coach Callaway and so forth, and having that together, and how can that impact the offense?
Yeah, I think especially going into, like, you think about, like, a first game of a season. Like, you have a general idea of what the team's going to do, but they're always going to have – everybody does work in the offseason. They prep for different things. They tweak things. So be able to have that kind of in our toolbox from last year, knowing how to react to things during games and prep for that, I think that's going to be big. Going to a game where it's the first game of the year, like I just said, but going back and having that last year, all that experience of how to prep for a game, how to prepare with the guys is big time. So
In what ways are you better than when we last saw you? I guess in Missouri.
Yeah.
One thing,
I have a healed collarbone.
Pretty broken collarbone. What will we see that maybe we weren't seeing last year?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what we've been harping on the whole offseason. I think the attention to detail, the execution in the crucial moments. I mean, we all know what happened last year and everything that went into that. It was a lot of situational football, small decisions, little tweaks. Like I said, protections, just getting the protection checks. So I want to go out there and put out a complete offensive, well-executed game.
Obviously, you've played in your fair share of big games in the Swamp already, but the Miami-Florida rivalry, that just takes it to a next level. Just how are you making sure that you and your guys stay calm, cool, and collected entering what could be one of the bigger games across college football this season?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that you play this game for these experiences, and you play them for the big game, the big one at home, the big away one. But I think back to any game that I've ever played in that's a big game, it all comes down to what team is going to execute. And, look, you can go in there with all the emotion, but that's not going to make you go out there and execute. If you go in there with the mindset, look, we're going to execute, that will lead to emotion. And I think that's one thing that Coach has been talking about a lot is, look, we go out there and we execute, that place is going to be rocking. He's like, if we don't execute, it's not going to be rocking. So I think being able to simplify it in your mind and, look, I got a job I got to go do. And my team's depending on me to go do it. And that will lead to all the emotion, the excitement, and the result we want.
What is that challenge of Miami's front seven? I mean, you've dug in on this team. So
Yeah.
What does that present?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's I played a lot of teams that have a lot of really talented front sevens, secondaries. So for me, I kind of try to look at more of the why behind what they're doing. I would dive into a lot of that, but say a team plays a lot of man. Okay, why do they play a lot of man? Do they trust their guys to go rush? Why do they play zone? So learning the why behind the plays being called on defense, not just the players. But obviously, I mean, they got guys. They got guys up front. Their linebackers are really, really solid. Everything kind of runs through the linebackers. He's a great player. I know his number. He was 51 last year. We're going to be 1 this year. Still don't know his name. But, yeah, I mean, I think the thing with them is just they're very talented, and they trust their guys. So it'll be a fun defense to play.
The biggest question for me in this game is Graham Mertz going to have enough time to throw in this Miami defense? Can the offensive line hold up to at least let us try and see the deep ball? Those explosive plays, can they be hit? I expect the things that he mentioned about improvement from last year, that, those things can be better this year. The situational football, the small decisions, the little tweaks in the protection checks. As he said, I want to go out there and put a complete offensive, well-executed game together. Well, I think all those other things, the things we just mentioned, he can do a lot, to help himself in that regard. But there's a team across from you that's going to try and mess those things up. In this case, Mertz can be much improved himself, but if the offensive line doesn't give him time, it's not really going to matter. The offensive line is going to have to give him time for us to see those things come to fruition. So, he knows more about the offense now, so the protection check should be better. But then it's about beating your man up front for the offensive line. He can help them out a bit, but they still got to go out there, get their protection checks right. He's going to help in that regard. But at the same time, then they're going to have to, even if the protection's called right, you're still going to have to go out there and beat your man. We all want to see the deep ball. I know I do, especially after last year. We want to see that progression in the offense. Look, I like Mertz. I like his weapons. On Saturday, I want to see that he gets the chances to let the ball loose a few times. All right, so let's keep it going right here. We'll switch to the defense and hear from cornerback Jason Marshall.
How significant is this game to you, being a Miami guy, playing this team, this in-state rivalry? Just how significant is this to kick off your senior season like this?
I think it's very significant, Blessed to have this opportunity. They was in my, recruiting process. They were high up there, so. And then just being from Miami, watching them growing up, watching that team, watching that organization, I feel like, it's good, so.
What do you see from Cam Ward?
Say that again?
What do you guys see from Cam Ward? He seems like he pretty good escapability. He can buy time, which kind of forces you guys to stick with guys a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm. I mean, at the end of the day, he's a great player. Can't discredit that. And like you said, he does scramble a lot. So that means, DBs, we have to stay stuck to the receivers. And then hopefully we get help from our D-line, and I feel like we are, but just our D-line giving us pressure and, us staying connected to the receivers, and I feel like we'll have a good game.
How about help from the crowd? I mean, you saw it with Joe Milton in Tennessee last year for one, and they were rattled.
Yeah, I think the crowd also plays, a big part. That could, mess up their communication is also a big game for us as well. So
3 new starters in the secondary. I mean, how is that communication, you think, coming together for you guys?
I think it's good. We went through spring, fall camp, and I feel like now it's time to, show the communication, show all the work that we put in. We've been in meeting rooms together, watching film together. So I feel like the communication is going to be good.
You've seen from Graham Mertz, it's just maybe a little different. How's he elevated his game?
I don't know, man. He just been locked in, It's crazy. I can't catch a pick from him now, but he just been locked in since the start of, January to now fall camp. Been locked in, seen a different Graham, so I'm excited.
Yeah, and more beyond, maybe in terms of his performance, what are maybe a thing or two you've just seen that he's doing better? Or does he just seem to be more comfortable, or what is it?
A lot more comfortable. I can say that. A lot more comfortable, especially in, the offensive game plan. A lot more comfortable.
What stood out when you guys watched that hour-long The History of Florida, Miami?
I would say, just the nastiness that both teams have towards each other. It's hate there. And at the end of the day, it's just, that they don't like each other. And, so.
Well, that was the way it was back then. I mean, when they were playing in the 80s, those were intense bloodbaths, as one person described it to me. But do you guys feel like you're going to bring that level of emotion and animosity to this game?
I think so. The team is fired up right now, now that we 5 days away. I'm fired up myself, so it just brings out another type of energy when that it's game week.
Of course, it is a money year for Jason Marshall, and it's kicking off against his hometown team. The first and last time Jason Marshall gets to play against Miami, so I'm sure this one's going to mean just a bit more. It was a big recruiting battle back then to get him from Miami. He came back this year. He's feeling confident with Will Harris leading that charge in the defensive back room. We just need to see more consistency from Jason Marshall and to help lead the consistency for the whole defense. It's going to be a great test against. I think Miami's got some pretty good trio of starting receivers. I think it's going to be a good test, to see if this new confidence is there. It needs to be ready game one. Marshall did say, I feel like the defense improved a lot. I'm excited for this year. I'm just at a loss for words how much of a turnaround the defense has come from. I'm excited. So hopefully we're all tired of seeing subpar defense after subpar defense at Florida. It used to be a given that Florida was just going to have a good defense. That has not been the case. Hopefully Jason Marshall's there leading that charge in the turnaround on that side of the ball. So, look, we talked about the recruiting battle. Marshall, he's a great example of all the recruiting battles in recent years. Seems to have really taken off more with the hires of Napier and Cristobal. Just another great angle to this game. Of course, plenty of just cycle just alone. No Miami commits that Florida is targeting will be on campus. Florida not really allowing Miami commits and I don't blame them for this game. But of course, busy weekend for uncommitted targets between the two schools. But it's just been that way, and certainly something I was going to look at. But I will give a shout out to Blake Alderman because he did all the work already. So shout out to him of an article in 24/7 Sports that certainly shows all the recruiting battles the last few years. Malik Bryant, Mark Fletcher, Samson Okunlola, of course, all committed to Miami in that 2023 class that Florida looked good for. Thought they were going to be Gators at one point, but Florida also had their wins in that 2023 class. Jakeem Jackson, Sharif Denson, two come to mind in that defensive backfield, and Andy Jean, of course. Florida needed that receiver and was thought to be a heavy Florida-Miami battle there for Andy Jean. And Florida comes out on top there. Hopefully, see him on the field at some point this season. But, he was committed to Miami at one point, was Andy Jean, ends up a Gator, and just one of the first early battles with Napier and Cristobal that went Florida's way, of course, to go along with Jakeem Jackson, Sharif Denson. There some pretty good battles for the defensive backfield. Florida was trying to retool that defensive backfield. Got Jackson, got Denson. Go back to 2024 class. Darius Hayes, longtime Florida commit, kind of going the other way with Andy Jean. Committed to Miami, ends up at Florida. Darius Hayes committed to Florida for a while, ends up at Miami. So that was one of the more polarizing battles in the last couple of years. There for Florida, LJ McCray in that same class, choosing Florida over Miami, ends up visiting Miami as a Florida commit when he committed to Florida in late October of that cycle. But LJ McCray, another big, it was a 5-star battle Florida needed to have over the Hurricanes. So certainly a big win there. And then the class we're in now, of course, Bryce Fitzgerald, Hilton Stubbs, both the safeties committed to Miami right now. Certainly, it's like I said, they won't be on campus this weekend unless they just want to pay for their own way in, but no visit that Florida's paying for by the guys committed to Miami. And then, of course, Florida keeping it going here with this current cycle. Hopefully stays this way, of course. Vernell Brown III, Ben Hinks Jr., Joshua Moore, all guys that Miami heavy interest in. And currently, right now, commits of the Florida Gators. So, 2 South Florida receivers, and then Ben Hanks recently committing to the Gators as well. Had the legacy angle there. Thought Florida was going to be the pick, maybe going into the summertime. Maybe Miami was the leader there back in late May, early June. Florida comes out on top there. So the battle's really raging on when Napier and Cristobal hired, but still going on at a fever pitch this cycle as well. So this game's going to be big. It can go a long way in keeping some of these guys, flipping some of these guys for both teams, and we'll see where it ends up. It certainly can go a long way getting the win in the swamp on Saturday. So, all right, that'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. Big thanks right there to Adam Lichtenstein joining me right here from the Sun Sentinel covering those Miami Hurricanes, and then hear him from Graham Mertz, Jason Marshall, getting ready for this big game against the Hurricanes. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. Guys and girls out there, thank you for joining me on this episode of Gators Breakdown.